Welcome back. Today we venture back in time to ancient Greece, and we ask, what were the Greek mystery traditions that formed the Greek religion before Christianity? And how did these mysteries emerge from the ancient world's most sacred wisdom? As we saw in our last video, the ancient Egyptian mysteries profoundly influenced Greek religious thought through centuries of cultural exchange, trade, and philosophical pilgrimage. Early Greek philosophers like Pythagoras, Plato, and Herodotus looked to Egypt as the wellspring of sacred knowledge, especially in matters of cosmology, ritual practice, and the soul's path after death. Themes of symbolic resurrection and rebirth, the soul's ascent from the material to the spiritual, and sacred drama as a vehicle for esoteric truth found new life in ancient Greece, reshaped into the Eleusinian, Dionysian, and Orphic Mysteries. So what were these ancient secret rites? Why were they so revered? And what truths did they conceal? Let's step back into the hidden sanctuaries of ancient Greece and find out. The Greek mysteries are described as esoteric institutions. The word esoteric comes from the Greek esoterikos, meaning inward or inner, as in the knowledge reserved for the inner circle, as opposed to the layman. In these ancient rites, knowledge was not taught, it was unveiled, hidden not to deceive, but to protect. What was at stake was not belief, but transformation. Before Christianity shaped the Western world, the spiritual imagination of the ancient Mediterranean was guided by these Greek mystery traditions, esoteric paths rooted in direct experience rather than dogma and belief. The Greek mysteries are principally composed of the Eleusinian rites of Demeter and Persephone, the ecstatic cult of Dionysus, and the transformative Orphic teachings. These mystery schools were not public temples, but hidden sanctuaries, where silence was sacred and truth revealed only through graded initiation. Those who sought entry underwent ritual purification and symbolic death, emerging as Mystai, the name given to initiates awakened to knowledge concealed from the unprepared. We will now uncover the esoteric secrets of these Greek mystery traditions, first beginning with the mysteries at Eleusis, then moving onward to the Dionysian Mysteries, and finally we will end with the Orphic Mystery schools. These systems were called mysteries because they involved secret initiatory rites that revealed esoteric teachings about life, death, and the soul, accessible only to those who underwent ritual purification and swore vows of silence and secrecy. So let's dive in and initiate ourselves into these Greek mystery traditions. We begin with the mysteries of Eleusis, formed between 1500 to 800 BCE and ending in the 4th century CE. The Eleusinian Mysteries reigned as the most celebrated spiritual rites in ancient Greece, and thus the Western world. The Eleusinian Mysteries have their beginnings dated between 1500 and 800 BCE because they developed gradually from earlier fertility rites into a formal initiatory tradition, making it impossible to assign a single origin point. The Eleusinian Mysteries centered on the Greek goddess of agriculture and fertility named Demeter, and her search for her daughter Persephone, the Greek goddess of vegetation and grain, who becomes abducted by the god of the underworld named Hades. These annual initiations offered profound visions of death, rebirth, and spiritual immortality. A candidate could undergo the Eleusinian Mysteries only once in their lifetime, because the initiatory experience was considered a singular, transformative encounter with the divine, never to be repeated. Demeter, Persephone, and Hades personify the cycle of the seasons, with Demeter as the nurturing summer earth, Persephone as the life descending into and returning from the underworld, and Hades as the hidden force of winter that draws growth inward for rebirth. Crucial to these rites was a sacramental drink called kykeon, possibly containing ergot, a fungus thought to contain psychoactive or psychedelic properties. The inventor of LSD, Albert Hofmann, derived the substance from compounds isolated from a species of this ergot fungus. In the book, The Road to Eleusis, the inventor of LSD, Albert Hofmann, alongside scholars R. Gordon Wasson and Carl A.P. Ruck, speculate that the sacred drink used at the Eleusinian Mysteries called kykeon contained natural lysergic compounds that induced psychedelic visionary states for initiates. These rites included fertility sacrifices of pigs and bulls, symbolic of the regenerative properties of the earth and cosmos. The Eleusinian Mysteries welcomed men, women, slaves, and foreigners, as long as they spoke Greek and had not committed murder. Greek philosophers Pythagoras and Plato are recorded to be initiates of these mysteries, carrying forth themes from these rituals into their respective philosophies. So we've covered the Eleusinian Mysteries. Next we have the Dionysian, which solidified between 1300 and 600 BCE, and also lasted into the 4th century CE. These rites celebrated Dionysus, the god of wine, fertility, and ecstatic transformation. The Dionysian Mysteries centered around the myth of Dionysus and his mythic death and rebirth. In this story, the death of Dionysus was actualized by the Titans, a powerful race of deities who ruled the cosmos before the Olympians. The Dionysian rites dramatized the soul's fragmentation and reintegration, echoing the death of Dionysus and his eventual rebirth. Nocturnal ceremonies featured intoxicating wine mixed with botanicals, known as trema, along with frenzied dance, theatrical performance, and trance. Women played central roles, entering ecstatic states that temporarily dissolved social identity, engaging in sacred madness. The bull, a fertility symbol tied to lunar, seasonal, and astrological cycles, was a key sacrificial emblem. The Dionysian Mysteries used bull horns as sacramental cups to symbolize the raw vitality and sacred madness of Dionysus, whose divine essence was often associated with the bull as a vessel of ecstatic power and transformation. Though more ecstatic and chaotic than the Eleusinian rites, the Dionysian Mysteries shared core elements of dramatic reenactment, symbolic death and rebirth, and the promise of spiritual renewal. To summarize thus far, the mysteries of Eleusis offered stability through sacred order, while those of Dionysus offered transcendence through divine chaos. Their difference lies not in opposing goals, but in complementary paths to the same mystery. The Dionysian Mysteries heavily influenced the later Orphic Mysteries, as well as more contemporary traditions like Neoplatonism, Gnosticism, Christian sacramental thought, and Renaissance occultism, echoing ecstasy, theatrical ritual, and transformation through vision. After the Eleusinian Mysteries and the Dionysian Mysteries, finally we come to the last of the three Greek mystery traditions that we will discuss, the Orphic Mysteries, which began between the 6th and 4th centuries BCE and lasted, like the two prior, into the 4th century CE. As opposed to the Dionysian mysteries just discussed, that were ecstatic, communal, and focused on divine madness and transcendence through ritual frenzy, the Orphic Mysteries were more monastic and philosophical, with a structured cosmology and ethical code. Orpheus, a legendary Greek musician, poet, and prophet, is central to the Orphic Mysteries as a mythical founder and spiritual archetype, whose descent into the underworld and divine musical gifts symbolize the soul's journey, the power of initiation, and the path to liberation through sacred knowledge and inner purification. While Orpheus served as the legendary initiator and teacher, it was the myth of Dionysus and his death, dismemberment, and rebirth that embodied the cosmic drama of the soul's fall and redemption at the heart of Orphic cosmology. Like the earlier Dionysian mysteries, the Orphic Mysteries, also known as Orphism, use the same myth of Dionysus as their central theme. Orphism taught that humanity was born of the Titans, who devoured god Dionysus, leaving each soul with a dual inheritance, a divine spark from the god and a shadow of titanic chaos, bound to the material world and longing for return to the spiritual realm. Orphism encouraged its adherents to follow the path of strict discipline and firm restraint, to practice vegetarianism, and to perform initiatory rites designed to purify the soul and liberate it from the cycle of rebirth and reincarnation, called metempsychosis in Orphic tradition. This concept of the Orphic metempsychosis may draw conceptual parallels to the Eastern doctrine of samsara, which is the cycle of life, death, and rebirth or reincarnation that traps all worldly life. Hinduism uses the word moksha, and Buddhism uses the word nirvana to describe the escape from this cycle of samsara. This Greek idea of metempsychosis was likely influenced by earlier Hindu and Buddhist concepts of reincarnation and the soul's karmic journey, transmitted through cultural contact with the East via trade, conquest, and philosophical exchange. These ideas found in the Orphic Mysteries laid early foundations for Western esoteric systems by introducing the theme of the soul's ascent from material bondage to divine union, a structure that reappears in later Platonism, Neoplatonism, Hermeticism, and early Christian mysticism. Orphism taught that the path to salvation was through purification, ethical living, and mystical knowledge. The symbolic death and resurrection of Dionysus foreshadowed similar motifs found throughout medieval alchemy and Renaissance esotericism. As such, Orphism served as the philosophical and symbolic precursor to many of the core themes that later characterized mystery schools and secret societies, laying the foundation for the lineage of the future Western esoteric tradition. For those paying attention, we have noted that the major Greek mystery traditions, made up of the earliest Eleusinian, onward to the Dionysian, and into the latest Orphic Mysteries, all met their end in the 4th century CE. So why did they disappear? By imperial decree in 391 CE, Christian Roman Emperor Theodosius I banned pagan rituals and ordered the closure of all temples. Around 395, Gothic forces destroyed the sanctuary of Eleusis, and it was never rebuilt. By the 5th century, these mysteries had disappeared from public religious life and were considered extinct. Because of this persecution, and due to the strict oaths of silence binding the initiates, Little beyond what has been shared today is known about the Greek mystery schools. Most existing information is derived from classical authors, limited archaeological findings, and later interpretive texts. Yet the legacy of the Greek mystery schools lives on. We know these mystery traditions shared key features of voluntary initiation, secrecy, ritual reenactment of myth, and the promise of personal transformation. They all employed solar, lunar, and celestial symbolism to align initiates with cosmic rhythms, a hallmark of esoteric thought. We will end our discussion on the Greek mysteries with a quote. Robert Macoy, 19th century Masonic author, wrote in his 1866 book, The General History of Freemasonry, that it appears all the perfection of civilization is due to those institutions which, under the veil of mystery, sought to illustrate the sublimest truths. Their chief object was to teach the doctrine of one God, the resurrection of man to eternal life, the dignity of the human soul, and to lead the people to see the shadow of the deity in the beauty, magnificence, and splendor of the universe. In our next video, we will explore how the Roman mystery schools of Isis and Mithras preserved core elements of the earlier Greek traditions while evolving their philosophical frameworks, continuing a lineage of secret initiation, mythic ritual, and celestial symbolism. These rites encoded astro-theological allegories, namely solar resurrection, cosmic ascent, and seasonal renewal through metaphor and myth, forming a shared esoteric worldview that later influenced Christian Gnosticism and Hermeticism, as well as later traditions like alchemy, Kabbalah, Rosicrucianism, and Freemasonry. Far from being modern inventions, these systems reflect a continuous tradition aimed at guiding the soul toward transformation, divine union, and alignment with the rhythms of the cosmos. We will see you next time as we uncover the evolution of these Greek mystery traditions into the Roman world. Where will this journey take us next? Like and subscribe to find out. Thank you for watching. Find more at joinseek.org.